overtime is a lie. Well, kind of. Let me explain. It's a federal income tax deduction that you claim on your tax return for qualifying overtime. Now, when I say qualifying overtime, I'm talking about the extra overtime premium, the part you get because it is overtime. So if you normally make $20 an hour and your overtime pay is $30 an hour, the qualifying part is that extra $10 an hour. And here's the part people miss. You're still paying Social Security and Medicare taxes on that overtime. And depending on your state, you still may owe state income tax. The deduction is capped at $12,500 for single filers and $25,000 for married filers. Let me break down how it works. Let's assume you're being taxed at 12% and you have $45,000 of income, and $5,000 of that is in qualifying overtime. You now will be paying tax on $40,000, which saves you $600. So the bottom line is overtime isn't tax-free. It's just potentially deductible on your tax return.
If you worked overtime in 2025, do not throw away your final pay stub. This is coming straight from the IRS. Here's why you need to keep it. A new rule allows some overtime pay to be tax-free up to a limit, but the IRS needs proof of how much overtime you actually worked and earned. The proof is in your final pay stub. Here's why throwing it away could cost you thousands of dollars. This is the first year this rule exists, so reporting may be messy. Some employers may not report overtime correctly. That's why you need to protect yourself. Keep your final pay stub. It shows your total overtime hours and overtime pay for the year. Send this to anyone you know who worked overtime in 2025 so they don't miss this.
Donald Trump just said today that he wants anybody making $200,000 a year or less not to have to pay any federal taxes. He says that the money coming in from the tariffs he put on other countries is going to offset it, so there won't be any need for us to pay taxes anymore. I know what y'all are thinking. Oh, well, he said there was going to be no tax on overtime. And that is 100% true. He did say that. And there still is no tax on overtime for anybody making less than $150,000 a year. Up to a certain amount, it's a tax credit at the end of the year when you file your taxes. Still a better deal than what we had before. But could you imagine getting your check and there's no federal taxes taken out, period? That will change lives in the United States. That will change America. So a lot of people are thinking, oh, he's just blowing smoke. Maybe he is, maybe he's not. But it's a good thought. It's a good thing if it does go through. It's not going to hurt for him to even try to get that to happen. I've always thought that Trump was for the people. If this happens, it will change America. So we can wish for the best, hope it happens, and look forward to it when it does.
So did we get duped on this no tax on overtime? And don't mind the cat, this is just a distraction, almost like 90% of the stuff the government does. But besides that, what is this? All we get is a small smidgen of a credit at the end of the year, and you get just a tiny bit of that money back. How hard is it just to not tax us on overtime? If you work 20 hours extra a week, that is 20 hours extra you did not have to work, and they should have no involvement of getting any of that money. It's awesome that they pass the no taxes on tips. If you make tips, you worked hard for that. They should not tax a penny of that money. But you tax us in every other aspect of life. So what's so hard about just not taxing the overtime? If you buy something, you get taxed. When you make money, you get taxed. When you sell something, you get taxed. When you get a gift, you get taxed. You can literally buy a car, sell it to your best buddy 20 different times, and there's a ad valorem tax on that every single time. But in the end, big government is always bad, always will be bad, and it is two wings of the exact same bird.
Okay, updated video for the no tax on overtime. My last one, I used double time for one of my figures just to simplify the math, but double time doesn't count. It's only time and a half pay that counts because that is what is mandated by the Fair Labor Standards Act. Okay, so let's say you make $30 an hour, so your overtime rate is $45, and let's say you work 10 hours of overtime every week for 52 weeks. That's 520 hours of overtime. You made $23,400 in overtime pay, but you don't get the deduction for that. You only get the deduction for the difference in your regular pay and overtime pay. So that difference is $15 times 520 hours. That means your overtime deduction is $7,800. So let's go to our next example. Let's say you make $50 an hour, so time and a half would be $75 an hour. You work the same overtime, 520 hours for the year. That means you earn $39,000 in overtime pay, but only the difference, the $25 times 520 hours, that means your overtime deduction would be $13,000. Okay, so here are the limits. If you're a single filer, you can only deduct up to $12,500 in overtime pay. And if you're married filing jointly, you get a deduction totaling $25,000. So for this example, since it's less than both of these numbers, you would be able to take the full $7,800. But let's look at this example for $13,000. If you're a single filer, you would still only get to deduct the max of $12,500. But if you're a joint filer, you would be able to deduct the full $13,000. So hopefully that explains how much of your overtime pay you get to deduct. And in the next video, I'm going to talk about, so how much money is that going to save you? And how do you deduct it? So if you haven't yet, make sure you follow your tax friend Jen, and I'll post that video shortly.
Okay, so there's news buzzing about new tax deduction, new tax claims. All right. Number one thing that is really, really buzzing is when you work overtime and being able to now claim your overtime as tax deduction. Yes. Yes, you heard it correct. You can now claim your overtime as tax deductions. Now, listen, all right. Of course, we have already, probably by now, some of us received our last pay stub of year to date. All right. You want to look at your last pay stub of year to date and look at that YTD column. All right. And see what all the talliations and calculations of the overtime that you worked during this year. It doesn't matter. Private sector, state, city, federal, it doesn't matter. Okay. One point in time they were saying union workers cannot receive it. However, it was really the union workers that fought for it. All right. So with that being said, if your year to date or all the overtime is not listed in that column for YTD, this is what you do. You want to look at your column far as your overtime. All right. And all the pay stubs that you worked overtime. Okay. You want to only add up those numbers with all of the past pay stubs. And your total is what your deductions would be when you file your taxes. Okay? You can speak with it with your tax preparer if you like. That's fine, because you need to let them know, hey, I'm actually going to supply you my overtime numbers, or if you feel comfortable supplying them with your pay stubs so they can calculate it. I don't know. Some tax preparers work different. All right. Now listen, for some jobs, you have some that receive their regular pay and time and a half. You have some jobs that just receive time and a half. You need to make sure you read all of those columns. Okay. Like, for example, where I work at, I have to read two columns, which is the overtime column. And it's a column that's called, I believe it's FLMAS, so many acronyms. I can't get those together, but the columns are together. All right. And you would add both those numbers together. All right. To get one. If you have not received under your year to date on your last pay stub, what your overtime is. This is very, very important. And yes, you can claim these deductions on your 2025 taxes. And this is Kim clocking it, signing out, and carrying on.
4 months, social media was flooded with claims that all overtime pay would be not taxed. People planned budgets, took extra shifts, and counted on bigger checks, only to open their pay stubs and realize something wasn't adding up. Now the videos are rolling in. Workers across the country are finding out the hard way that not all overtime is non-taxed. And in many cases, nothing changed at all. The confusion, frustration, and disbelief are very real, and so is the backlash. In this video, we react to the latest viral clips of Americans realizing the truth about overtime pay, how misinformation spreads so fast, and why so many people are now saying, this is not what we were told. Another lesson in FAFO economics, read the fine print. So many workers truly believed that overtime pay would be completely tax-free. They worked extra hours, they planned bills around it. Some even defended it online loudly. Then the paycheck arrived. Same deductions, same taxes, same system, and suddenly, the videos change tone. The excitement turns into confusion. The confidence turns into anger. Because once again, people are finding out after the fact. This isn't about laughing at workers. It's about calling out misinformation and the consequences of believing viral talking points without reading the details. FAFO doesn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes it comes as a smaller paycheck than you expected. So let me ask you, Did you believe overtime would be tax-free? Or did you already know this was never that simple? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit like, subscribe, and stay tuned because the FAFO lessons keep coming. Just a quick note, full credit goes to the original creators of these videos. Enjoy your day. See you on the next one.